For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm a reader in storytelling and brand communications at Queen Mary University of London. One of the things I enjoy most is telling stories of remarkable people, the unsung heroes, men and women who dedicate their lives to serving others, quietly creating impact, often without the spotlight, without the headlines, and certainly without the red carpets they truly deserve. But today is a little different. Today's guest is no ordinary fish in the sea. He is a shark in the vast ocean of geopolitics. For decades, he has navigated the turbulent water of strategy, conflict, diplomacy, and international affairs, not merely as an observer, but as a practitioner, a strategist, and a scholar. His insights have traveled far beyond the shores of Bangladesh, joining conversation on security, leadership, and geopolitics. Which brings me to a question. What if the most important battles are fought on the battlefield? Or what if the most important battles are not fought on the battlefield? What if they are fought years earlier in the minds of leaders, in cabinet rooms, in intelligence briefing, in diplomatic negotiations, and in the strategic decisions that quietly shape the destiny of nations? History often remembers war, but history is written long before the first shot is fired, through vision, diplomacy, intelligence, and the decisions leaders make. Today's guest has spent a lifetime understanding that reality. Imagine a young officer standing on the deck of a warship, scanning the seemingly calm horizon. To most people, the sea is peaceful and safe. To a strategist, it is not, as the greatest dangers are often invisible. They lie beyond the horizon, in shifting alliances, competing interest, intelligence, diplomacy, and the complex game of geopolitics. For nearly 4 decades, today's guest, Commodore Mohammad Abdur Razzak, served the Navy with distinction, rising through the ranks to become a Commodore in Bangladesh Navy. His career took him from operational command to strategic planning, from military intelligence to United Nations peacekeeping missions, and from national service to international consultancy. Yet, what makes his journey truly remarkable is what happened alongside his military career. While serving his country, he quietly pursued another mission, not with weapons, but with ideas. He studied history, not simply to understand the past, but to understand how leaders make decisions, why nations rise and fall, how power is exercised, and why conflicts continue to reshape our world. Over the years, that passion has produced more than 160 published articles in respected national and international journals, newspapers, earning him recognition as one of the Bangladesh's most thoughtful voices on geopolitics and strategic affairs. His recent book, Geopolitics of Terrorism in the Sand and Geopolitical Stories Around the World, invite readers to look beyond the headlines and ask deeper questions about power, leadership, conflict, diplomacy, and future of the world. Today, however, we are not simply discussing geopolitics. We are asking a much bigger question. What can history teach today's leaders? Whether you lead a nation, a business, a university, a military organization, or simply your own family, history offers lessons that no classroom alone can teach. So today we explore leadership through the lens of history, strategy through the lens of geopolitics, and through the lens of a man who has spent a lifetime serving his nation and studying the forces that shape our world. It is my great pleasure to welcoming our distinguished guest, Commodore Mohammad Abdur Razzak. Commodore Razzak, welcome to Intellectual Adda. We are truly honored to have you with us.
Thank you, Dr. Moin, and thank you so much for your kind words. It's a great pleasure to be with you in the storytelling sessions, and I hope we sail pretty well in this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure to having you with me in today's Adda. So, sir, my first question to you is, many people study history to know what happened. You study it to understand decisions. Why is history such a powerful classroom for leadership?
Actually, leaders also need to learn. They need a session, classroom session or something like that. So history is the perfect and neutral ground where the leaders can learn many things, diverse issues and challenges. Say, take it for for example, a pilot before taking the flight, he passes many hours on simulators, and in the simulators, different features are given into the simulator: the weather challenges, the mountainous terrain, and many other things. Likewise, in the ship simulator, the navigators are also trained with different challenging features in the simulators, so that they can navigate safely through the oceans and while on the air, and they can avoid the dangers ahead of them. Similarly, the leaders, they must learn from the history. History is a neutral ground. It's also kind of a laboratory where the leaders can learn. If I take the example from the Cuban Missile Crisis, that was a very serious moment between the two superpowers and two nuclear superpowers. The restraint shown by President Kennedy, and also the wisdom showed by former Soviet President Khrushchev, perhaps could avoid the nuclear catastrophe. Why did they show restraint? I think they studied the history. Similarly, if I take the example of the fall of Soviet Union and China, the Soviet Union fell just like that, but China survived. I'm sure China has studied the pitfalls of the Soviet leaderships, where they made the mistakes, where they failed to take decisions, and China has survived. And now today they are one of the leading superpowers in the world. And if we take the latest example from the U.S., Israel, and Iran war, USA is a superpower, and Israel is a huge regional power, but Iran survived the onslaught of the two powers, because in the last 20 years, Iran studied the failures of USA in Afghanistan, and the Soviet failures of Soviet Union in Afghanistan, and they have also studied their own mistakes. They have learned through the Arab-Israel war, their war with Iraq, and the subsequent turmoils in the Middle East. So they have studied a lot of the history, and they have prepared themselves for any eventualities. And we can see that the historical learning has given them dividend, and they survived the two powers, that is the US and Israel, and they are in some kind of commanding position in today's war.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And I think possibly US also actually, the moving towards the signing the contract or stopping the war. That is also probably they learned something from the history they had with other countries, as you were saying, with Iraq or maybe with Afghanistan. So yeah, you told you answered this question very well, and I particularly appreciate the examples that you brought forward, which is history, but also to me it looks like sort of a story, and I'm very passionate about it. So is my audience. So yeah, okay, sir, you want to add?
I like to mention one point. The smaller countries in the world, they can also learn from this US, Israel, and Iran war. how a small power can confront and prepare themselves to confront a bigger power. That's a huge learning ground. The U.S., Israel, and the Iran war.
Fantastic, fantastic. So yeah, I mean, it's very interesting actually, particularly for the students of geopolitics, the way you are bringing the examples. I'm very fascinated about it. So I would like to move into the next question for you, Commodore Razzak. Looking across history, what is the leadership mistakes that keeps repeating? Can you give some examples and explain to us?
Actually, the mistakes are pretty common. And leaders across the world or across the history keep repeating those mistakes. The first mistake is doing something just to look you are doing something, showing the people that you are doing something because ahead of the elections or some immediate gains or immediate popularity. So you always do something that shows that you are doing something. And the second is surrounding yourself, the people with who agree with you. This is like yes men. Anything you say, they agree. They do not oppose. That makes it that actually leads the leaders to a wrong decision. Leaders, there should be some people who should oppose the leader's decision if that is not correct. That is not worth. So these two mistakes are the leaders are making the mistakes, and this has a analogy with the Peloponnesian War, which is the longest war in the history, one of the longest wars in the history. And the Athens was winning, but they got overconfident, and the leader wanted to do something more, and the generals around him encouraged him to engage, and but ultimately the result was not very happy ending.
Fantastic, sir. Thank you very much, actually. I mean, it's very profoundly brought into the context of business as well. Sometimes leaders are surrounded by yes ministers, and that's the problem because leaders should be complemented by the skills of other people that sometimes leaders lack. But you said it so nicely. So that brings me to my next question, that what separates leaders who shape history from those who simply react to it?
It is like weather managers and climate builders. Some leaders are the weather manager. There will be inclement weathers. There will be rain. There will be storm. There will be flood. And leaders are focused on managing the after effects. And they get some popularity, doing something immediate, relieving the sufferings of the people. That's one kind of thing. And another is the climate builders. While they fight the immediate calamities, they build the climate. They build, they plant trees. They raise the rivers for the water flow, and they work for the environmental protection. So to mitigate any natural disaster in the future. And the shapers, actually the climate builders are the shapers of the history, and I call them temporal imagination. They see into the future to reduce the climate impacts. So these are the two kinds of leaders we have: who looks at the short-term benefits and gains and the popularity, and who focus on the long-term benefits. I can just give one example of Lee Kuan Yew, the founding prime minister of Singapore. Singapore is a very small country. It has water is a serious problem for Singapore. And Lee Kuan Yew, he just did not react to water shortages, that is providing water to the people, but he built a water system. He built dams, desalination, recycling, and that would secure Singapore for generations. And today, Singapore is pretty well off with the water management systems.
Fantastic, fantastic. That actually brings me very well to my next question, which is about, say, leaders who are successful and leaders who are visionary, and what is the interlink between them. So my next question to you is, from the lessons of geopolitical history that you have mastered over the years, what distinguishes a successful leader from a visionary one? Can someone be visionary without understanding history?
as a common people, when I said that leader is successful, this leader is successful, whom I give this attribute, successful leader, who solves the immediate problem, the today's problem. Today I have a traffic congestion in the city, and the next morning I find that traffic problem is solved. Oh, I say that he is very successful leader. But what comes after 100 days or 1 year or 5 years, I'm not very focused on that. So the successful leaders are who deals with the immediate problems, and the visionary leaders changes problems. They changes the problem permanently. The visionary leaders. As in the commercial context, the success is kind of quarterly gains or the election wins in the in the polls. And the vision is generational transformation that transform the generations. And there is a critical part that you cannot really vision without history. The vision is, it is a combination of historical learning and the present, what we are doing in the present. If we combine these two and look into the future, take this lesson for building the future, that becomes the vision. And vision is not prophecy. It is not magic. It is not guessing the future. Vision is informed projection. That means you're learning from the past, learn your mistakes in the present, and shape the future. That is a vision. And vision without historical learning is a kind of hallucination. That's what is my understanding about the successful leaders, the visionary leaders. Again, I will bring the example of Lee Kuan Yew, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad from Malaysia. These two were visionary leaders because they shaped the future for the generations. They did not work for themselves only. They did not work for their popularity. They did not work for the election win. They worked for the next generations and set the future for them. That is what is the difference between a successful leader and a visionary leader.
Sir, fantastic, sir. I'm so amazed and I'm so overwhelmed by the way you have answered this question. So for my audience, I would like to paraphrase or just highlight some of the points that you have actually mentioned, because I truly understand that you have actually thrown some gems into the discussion of leadership by bringing the wisdom from history and geopolitics. So, dear audience, what Commodore Razzak has said is phenomenal, because he first brought us to the understanding that if I give somebody attribute that he is a successful leader today, what do I see? We judge them on his performance or her performance today. That means fighting the immediate problems and giving a solution to the immediate problem. And that can bring some ease to the lives of the people they are leading. But what about that problem has not been permanently solved? So he might be a successful leader in solving today's problem, but ultimately the problem may not be eradicated permanently. And there comes the visionary leaders. So visionary leaders might see opportunities even in problems, and they avail the opportunities and they transform the life or the generations in such a way that the problem is not only managed for today, but it is managed for years to come. So that is a very fantastic way, actually, he has answered this question, because he said that how do we judge a successful leader today? Looking at immediate problems. But what is visionary? And then his definition of visionary leader is very, very profound. He said that it's not just a magician, or it's not just a charismatic leader falling from the sky. It's kind of a man among us who is interested about the past, who wants to learn from the past, understand the present, and then he used a word that it's kind of informed projection. So that means he brings the critical thinking at the core of the visionary leader. And while doing the critical thinking, they are also mastering the information. So thank you very much. I think that's a wonderful answer. For me, it's a great wisdom, and for that I have received today from you, and I'm sure that for my audience as well. And that brings me to the next question, which is the importance of long-term thinking when today's leaders are also sort of pressurized by today's uh, problems. So how important is long-term thinking when today's leaders are constantly under pressure for short-term results?
Because people want to see the immediate gains and immediate results, so the leaders are also focused on that. But about long-term thinking, actually it is everything. It's a long-term thinking, and it is what's most missing in the thinking process, because we are interested in the short-term gains. Short-term gains, in absence of long-term thinking, that is, the gain is short-term, but the loss is in the long term. And the long-term thinking, there will be less short-term gains, but more gains in the long term. That's the equation between the short-term thinking and the long-term thinking. And long-term thinking and long-term activities always takes pretty long time. For example, if the leader wants to develop the education system of the country, it's not a quick fix. He has taken the government can take a policy, and that education system definitely will not be developed in 6 months or 1 month. It will take decades to develop the whole education system. But when it is done, the benefit is permanent, and it will last a very long time. It is like people say, like cathedral building. Building a cathedral takes a long time. It's a long time. So and when we are focused on the short-term gains, and leaders are also doing short-term activities, what is seen that short-term activities needs many quick fixes in the immediate future, because it is done very hurriedly, without long-term thinking, without detailed study. So some project is done, then we find that so many problems are coming up. So again, there will be many quick fixes to make it viable and to make it give the benefit to the people.
Fantastic,
And
fantastic.
if we take the example of China's Belt and Road Initiative, there are differences of opinion. Someone will hate it, someone will like it, but China has taken a long-term thinking process. It is a 30-year project or 50-year project, but it is long-term and it is sustaining, and it is getting accepted by the many countries. Whether other part of the world may not like it, but China is being successful with this Belt and Road Initiative, because they're seeing they're getting in the benefits in the long term, so they are accepting it. And the cathedral thinking, what I said, it is built for generations, that the man who is building or the leader who is building, he may not see its completion, but the generation will get the benefit of it.
Brilliant, sir. I mean, I really liked the way you said cathedral building. That is what is the art of storytelling, that you answer something, you explain, but you leave the audience a word or a metaphor, and they can remember and they understand. So it's about balance sometimes, because sometimes we have a pressure to eradicate the immediate pain, but not at the cost of future loss. So I think that there is also importance here about the trust building upon the leaders among the people, so that when leaders are solving a permanent problem and taking longer time, then the people should have trust upon them. That is also fundamentally important, because many people would like to get their immediate problem solved. So that also brings me to my next question, sir, which is, many global crises develop slowly over time. What early warning signs should leaders learn to recognize?
Actually, there is the slow erosions. Before it takes a deep root or before it creates the problem, leaders cannot realize. And when they realize, perhaps they become too late. Like, for example, the declining investment in intelligence and analysis, it can be one. And I'm talking about the warning signs, and the capable people leaving public services because they are frustrated, Actually, this problem is can be seen especially in the developing countries where the democracy is sometimes in turmoil, and subordinate becomes, and this is very crucial, the subordinates become afraid of speaking the truth to the power. That means it makes them some kind of yes minister. Whatever the leadership says or demands, they accept it. But if they have a better suggestion of they find that it will not be successful, they are afraid to speak the truth. So some ethical compromises that become order of the day. People started to make compromise with their ethical positions, and that eventually puts the leadership in trouble. And there is thinking that everyone will do it. It's just this one problem, we'll fix it later. So this kind of understanding and the talks started bringing in the administration. So these are the warning signs that leaders should take notice, but normally they do not take, but they take the notice when they actually they are in trouble.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's a wonderful kind of answer. That brings us to an area where leaders navigate through uncertainties, and we know that today's world is full of uncertainties. So my question to you is, history is full of uncertainty. What lessons help leaders make good decisions when they don't have all the information?
Actually, the leaders, the information they have, it is not always perfect and it is not always full. So they have to make informed decision. So again, coming back to the history, the historical studies actually history is a laboratory where he learns the challenges in the past, the problems in the past. Again, I will bring the example of Cuban Missile Crisis. Kennedy did not know what Nikita Khrushchev will do with the placing missiles in Cuba, and what would do to how would he react to U.S. reactions. But he considered the outcome, that from diplomatic solution to all-out nuclear war, which option is better? He considered that diplomatic negotiation or diplomatic initiative is much better than a nuclear output. So he had the pressure to launch attack on Cuba, but he took this middle course, that is a quarantine, naval quarantine of Cuba. That's a very good decision in my opinion. On the other hand, the Soviet president Nikita Khrushchev, he also took an informed decision, and he withdrew the missiles from Cuba. So when he was asked by a journalist, why did he withdraw missile from Cuba? He answered, if there is no civilization, where to build communism? That was a fantastic response. So he also understood that a nuclear warfare catastrophe on Cuba will neither be good for the USA, nor Cuba, nor Soviet Union. So they took a very perfect decision and avoided a massive global crisis. So before, without the informed, without perfect knowledge, the leaders will have to make their own decision, understanding what is going to happen, what is the reaction and repercussions.
Thank you very much. That's a brilliant answer, Commodore Razzak, sir. So my next question is, in this scenario, I think leaders have to be mindful about caution, but also be very, very courageous to go through the decisions they make. So how should leaders balance courage with caution?
If I remember the teaching of Sun Tzu, a Chinese general who laid down some philosophical teachings 2,500 years back, that's very interesting. He warned about the reckless leader. And who are the reckless leaders? who has the courage but no caution. That is, courage without caution is make a reckless leader. And he can ruin his country anytime. Again, a leader is too cautious but has no courage, that paralyzes the country. So the leaders will have to make a balance between the courage and the caution. It shifts with the context. It depends on it will have to decide. So when to courage should take more advanced position, and when cautions to take place. But the leaders who fail often do the opposite. They are cautious about the goals, who are not sure that what he wants, and reckless about execution. But they are going to do something dramatic. So these are kind of things that that leaders have to navigate.
Fantastic.
To be an example from Abraham Lincoln. So
Okay,
Abraham Lincoln, we know that's everybody knows about him. But one character attributes about him is that he was bold on the ends, preserved the Union, end slavery, and he never wavered. But on the means of doing these ends, he was very cautious, pragmatic, and patient. He fired generals, changed tactics, and waited for the right political moment. So this is a fantastic example of a leader's how a leaders can balance the courage and caution. Abraham Lincoln's life story can be a very bright example of for learning by the current leaders.
Brilliant. So I think that's a wonderful example. So you said so profoundly that he was bold on ends, that is to achieving the objective,
Yeah.
but through the means, when he is executing this, through implementing the strategy or the tactics, he was very cautious that what is the outburst. So that made him actually achieve the mission in a way that is very effective. So that's really, I really appreciate the examples and the way you have explained. It's immensely beneficial for me and for my audience. I'm definitely sure about it. I'm going to come to nation building and institution building, and going to just put little focus into your book. So your book discusses military capability, maritime power, national preparedness. What do these teach us about building strong institutions?
Actually, institutions are the strength of a nation. If the institutions are strong and capable of working independently and with professionalism, then any crisis that comes into on the state, they can handle it. If I give the example of Iran, the most current example, Iran had a lot of difficulties, military difficulties, in dealing with the USA and Israel. They had a lot of losses of military leaderships. They lost many of their military capabilities, but still they survived because they focused on building. My understanding, in my assessment, they focused on building the institution over the past decades, since perhaps after the war with Iraq. And they have, we know about the unique command system. This is mosaic command. That's a new terminology we learned from this war. Mosaic command is decentralizing the command structures. Each command can decide their actions independently, aligned with the national objective. That is the national institutions. And the damages they sustain, and immediately after some days, they could repair and put those establishments into operations. That is what is the institution. Institution is the power of the state.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. I think when you talk about Mosaic Command, and something comes to my mind, and which is the book written by, I think, one of the U.S. generals who was in Iraq, Teams of Teams. And in that book, he talked about that it was very difficult for them to fight the problems because the guerrilla warfare and the way the attacks were coming, and US was really struggling to actually to establish command and control because it takes so long, but the attacks were immediate. And then finally they developed a model which is teams of teams. So teams, small teams, they have the authority to actually do whatever needed to be done for their survival and or for to achieve the mission. So I find little connotation with this, but I think probably the way you put it, it might be lot. It is lot comprehensive, and it has we have a lot to learn from here actually because they were fighting one of the superpowers and still they were surviving. So that's a brilliant, I think, answer, and the
I,
way
I,
you open.
I like to add two more points here. That's if
Okay,
the
sir.
state, if the leadership wants to build the state institutions, it has to be done during the peacetime.
Okay.
When the state is in a crisis, you cannot build institutions. That is the test of the institutions. When the state is in a crisis, that the institutions are put to test how they function, how best they can function. Again, if I give the example of Singapore's military, it became independent in 1965. It had no army. It had nothing. Lee Kuan Yew literally wept when the independence was given to Singapore. He invested in Singapore armed forces, not just buying weapons. Immediately after the independence, he did not buy weapons for Singapore military. He built the doctrine, military doctrine for the Singapore, trained officers, creating a culture of excellence in the military. And now today, it is one of the finest armed forces we see in the world. Small country, but one of the finest military in the world. Lee Kuan Yew, he laid the foundation again, coming with the visionary leadership. This is how he transformed the Singapore military, how he built the Singapore military with strong institutions.
Fantastic. So that's really a fascinating example. So actually, my next question was about this thing, but you covered part of the actually your answer covered a part of the question that I was about to ask. So my question was that I'm going to ask you: why do some nations prepare successfully for the future, which you have actually told, while others remain trapped in short-term thinking? What are the consequences? So, sir, can you give an example as opposed to Singapore that you have given now, Singapore Army, that some nations they were trapped because of short-term thinking, and what is the consequences?
Actually, the the the, the nations who have become successful, the leaders in those countries, they consider themselves as a trustee.
Okay.
They have a responsibility to build the country for the future generations. And some in other part of the world or some in some other countries, they might seem that they are not tenants. They are the trustees. They consider themselves the caretaker for the future, the caretaker of the country, not just renters of the present. And they think, I hold this country in trust for the next generations. They build, they live the country for the future. They do not see, they do not enjoy the benefit for the foundation what they have laid. And the short-term thinkers, by contrast, are trapped by election goals, immediate benefits, become with the popularity, fixing short-term problems, quick fixes, and ultimately, in the long run, the nation is loser. So this is how depending on the leadership, the some nations are prepared for the future, some nations are not prepared for the future.
Brilliant, brilliant. I'm just amazed by the way you said. The short-term leaders, they look for election results, popularity, immediate goals, and the metaphor that you have used, that long-term leaders are trustee of the future, while short-term leaders are the renters of the present. That's amazing. So I just want to ask a question that I did not plan to ask you, because I'm just thinking that I could not even think about such a brilliant answer that I will be getting from you. So if this is what is the reality, the nation has a role to play. When I say nation, the people has a role to play, because people, they need to understand that who is the right leader. So how we can change the perception of people, and what role as an academic I can play in my classroom to develop next generation of people coming into the country. And some of them will be leaders, but some of them will be playing role in choosing the leaders as well. How can we prepare a nation, or how can we prepare a group of people so that they can understand, or they can revert the understand the real qualities leaders demonstrate, and they can revert the right leader?
And coming at the end of the discussion, you have asked a billion-dollar question, not a million.
Okay.
Actually, it is the people who have to select their own leaders. They should select the leaders by quality. They judge the leaders by qualities, not by anything else.
Okay,
And the leader who will come forward to lead the nation also should have some visions, and actually the people will have to judge whom they will choose. It depends on them. If they choose a good leader, they're lucky. But unfortunately, if they do not have a good leader in the basket to choose, what they can do? They are trapped in that case. Anyway, I emphasize on the people to choose the best leader, whatever they have at their disposal and in the basket.
Fantastic, fantastic. So maybe I will ask two more questions, because I have a number of other questions as well, but maybe I think you have disseminated so much wisdom, and I think for me and for my audience to really understand this thing, it might be wise that we can have another intellectual adda. But maybe I finish by asking a last question to you. So after studying geopolitics and history for so many years, if you could leave the next generation with just one lesson, what would you say to future leaders who want to leave the world safer, wiser, and more prosperous than they found it?
Actually, the leadership is not about an individual. It is about the system that individual builds for the future generations. That is the young leaders should pursue for the country. They should enable the future. They should build the future. They should not remain ensnared in the present. They always look forward. The greatest leaders in history are not those who accumulate the most power or fame. They do not work for their own popularity, own gains, and own fame. They work for the future generations. So young leaders should think that they are the builders of the futures.
Fantastic, fantastic. So that is also, you are bringing system thinking, which is very popular in today's world, because we are connected by system. If you think about, I teach digital culture and social media for undergraduate students, and we see that the whole world is connected. It's a kind of digital empire we are living in, and everybody is a node, and their connections are kind of linked. And the more people you are connected, you might be more strong as a node. And the more you understand the digital reality, probably it will navigate better. So understanding the system in this complex world is very, very important. And as you said, that it's not about individual. That's a very bold statement, and that's a very profound wisdom that we sometimes misunderstand, that leaders, they may be kind of charismatic, dynamic, but it's about who is humble, but who can create, create the system. So I would like to actually go directly into the conclusions by giving one more analogy. So I was reading at that book, that Good to Great, and in that book, Jim Collins said that there are leaders, level 5 leaders, and he used the metaphor and window and mirror metaphor. So he said that when things go wrong, these level 5 leaders, they stand in front of the mirror and they realize that what mistakes they have done and that what happened. But when things go right, they go and stand in front of the window because they try to understand again, they try to reflect, and they try to give the credit to somebody who really are supposed to get the credit. So thank you very much, sir, for this intellectual adda today with us. You have shared your wisdom. You have shared the knowledge that you have gathered over a period of time, spending years of effort, and that is truly remarkable and profound for me and for my audience. So today's conversation reminds us that history is far more than a record of the past. It is the guide for the future, as Commodore Razzak has iterated time and again. We often think leadership is about making the right decision in the right moment, but today's discussion, as Commodore Razzak said, has shown us that great leadership begins much earlier. They fall back to the past, they understand the present, but they also forecast the future. It begins with understanding context, learning from history, thinking beyond immediate gains, and having wisdom to recognize patterns that others fail to see. One of the most powerful lessons from today's conversation that I want to take forward is that nations do not stumble into greatness by accident. Neither do leaders. They are shaped by vision, disciplined thinking, continuous learning, and the courage to make decisions that future generation will one day appreciate. And the examples that brought forward by Commodore Razzak are so profound in explaining this wisdom. In a world increasingly defined by uncertainty, rapid technological change, geopolitical competition, and information overload, the ability to think strategically may become one of the most valuable leadership skills of our time. We hope today's discussion has inspired you not only to understand history, but to learn from it. Because history does not simply ask us to remember the past, it challenges us to build a future, a better future. On behalf of everybody at Intellectual Adda, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Commodore Abdur Razzak for sharing his knowledge, wisdom, and lifelong experience with us.
And thank you so much. But if you allow me, I like to add one historical information. That's Singapore's founding Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew is one of my favorite leaders in the world. When he was a young man, he was studying bar at law in the UK. He identified two things bring money. There is the education and technology. And when he got the opportunity, he got the leadership of Singapore in 1965. He built the Singapore on education and technology. And it took 29 years to build the Singapore on education and technology. And you can see where does Singapore stand in today's world standard. That is why I said earlier that leaders should be visionary. And visionary leadership is not any quick fix. He doesn't deal with the quick fix. He deals with the long-term benefit. He deals with the building the future for the future generations. This has been a unique learning for me from the biographical book of Lee Kuan Yew. And Dr. Moin, thank you so much for inviting me in this Intellectual Adda. It has been a great privilege and pleasure for me to be with you in this discussion. And I hope I look forward for future interactions also. And thank you so much. Wish you all the best with your Intellectual Adda. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. It's all the pleasure is mine. And to be honest with you, I learned so much. You have opened horizon of knowledge in front of me. And I will come back time and again to navigate through this horizon and disturb you, try to learn from your knowledge that you have built over a period of time. And to all our viewers around the world, thank you for being part of this conversation. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please share, like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what leadership lessons resonated with you most. From London to Dhaka, from Moin to Commodore Razzak, from stories to strategy, from question to wisdom. This has been Intellectual Adda on Creativity Café. I'm Dr. Moin. Thank you for watching this Intellectual Adda. Until next time, goodbye.